Welcome to Going Antiviral, the podcast for the IAS-USA, a professional continuing medical education organization focused on HIV and other viral diseases. I'm Dr. Michael Saag, professor of medicine and infectious diseases at the University of Alabama at Birmingham and volunteer member of the IAS-USA Board of Directors. Welcome to the Going Antiviral podcast. Today, May 13th, 2025, we are speaking to Mary Fisher, an artist and activist who has spent a lifetime giving voice to the voiceless. The author of 7 books and recipient of numerous honorary degrees, her historic speech at the 1992 Republican Convention entitled A Whisper of AIDS has been named one of the 40 famous speeches that have had long-term effect on society and has been ranked by Oxford Press as one of the 100 best American speeches of the 20th century. Today, Mary joins us to discuss communicating the importance of science and research to the public. Mary, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you, Mike. It's good to see you.
It's
Or should I
always
call you Dr. Saag?
well, Mike is good. I like that.
Oh,
So we'll go Mike and Mary. It'll be a Mike and Mary show, which
okay.
is always nice. Um, so let me, by way of introduction further and to get us going, because I could spend 15 or 20 minutes really just having you recount how you got to where you are today. But so I'll just summarize it and say that you were born in Louisville, Kentucky, which is also where I was born. And not coincidentally, we are third cousins, which a lot of people don't know. But you and I approached HIV from very different directions. I went into the research direction, and you became a pioneer on the road to HIV by picking up the infection from your husband, and then you turned what otherwise was a incredibly huge challenge into a great opportunity to speak out to the general public in particular about what it's like to be a person with HIV. And you've done so magnificently since January 1992, when you were first diagnosed. You appeared on TV with Diane Sawyer, I remember, before you spoke at the Republican Convention. Since then, as we mentioned, you've published 7 books now, starting with a memoir called My Name is Mary, which I recommend to everyone. It's a fascinating story. It's incredibly heartfelt and really tells how you got to where you are. So, without going into all those details, I'd like to pick up today, where we are today, because a lot has happened, and you're still here, and I'm still here, and it's been over 30 years since you've been dealing with this. So, um, maybe you can tell me in general how you're doing and what are you focused on right now?
I'm doing well. I have ups and downs, Mike, with and um um I just had another bout of COVID, and that was not exciting. And I always worry about that with me because I don't know how my body's going to react to it. But what I'm doing now is that I just have a new book, and we've just had a launch, and it's really, I think, the older I get, the more I understand that I don't know if I really care about what people think of me, and I just need to speak out, and without and without kind of making it more comfortable for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I remember about a lot about our interactions together is you became quite close to Larry Kramer.
I did.
And Larry Kramer was for those who aren't aware, was the founder of ACT UP, and he obviously didn't have much trouble speaking out. So it sounds like you're getting more in the Larry Kramer mode of action and thinking. Is that accurate?
Well, yes and no, maybe. I don't know. I don't scream as loud as Larry, because that's just not in my nature. But I am totally disappointed in what's happening now. I mean, if you want to talk about really all of the things that have been, I did a lot of work in Africa. I've done a lot of work in India and Haiti, and all of our programs are gone. And that, to me, is what I'm living with right now, is the fact that so many people are going to die, and children. And I'm having a very hard time with that.
Yeah, you and I worked a lot in Zambia together, and I remember back uh, in 2004, we went over during the launch of their PEPFAR program, and the remarkable transformation. It's got to be a more powerful word, but that's what it was.
Oh, it
Uh,
felt like that, exactly like that.
and watching every day be the roads would be crowded with funerals, and had gridlock on the roads, and then the introduction of therapy, for which the uptake was incredibly rapid, and then even just within 2 years, people were living and thriving, and the whole affect of the country changed. It was like the movie Yellow Submarine, where the color returned to Pepperland, uh, and from black and white, and it just was remarkable. Uh, tell me what that was like for you.
Well, when I first went to Africa, I went with a group from the White House. And I remember sitting, where the delegation was sitting on one side, and the people in, I think it was Uganda, sitting on the other side, and they were translating what people were saying and explaining. And I was thinking, and this was like, I think, 1999. I'm not sure, or yes, something around there. And I had a terrible time. I had a hard time because I felt I couldn't be on this side of that of that audience. And I told them, and I said, I need to be on the other side and to talk with everyone, because that's my family. I mean, these are the people that I'm living the same way they're living, or not living, because we don't have medication. And at the time, I think I wasn't on medication, but there were things happening in the United States, but I couldn't take them because they made me sick and made me, not well, and I wasn't going to do that. So they did let me do that, and that was the beginning of my knowing and loving that community in Africa, because they were so surprised, first of all, that a white woman would have this disease, and that she would talk about it. And I was just like, well, we're all sisters and brothers. It's like we're all the same. And so it was a wonderful beginning for me. And then when they got medication and I could go and work with them, and I taught women, and we made jewelry together, and we danced together, and we laughed, and we ate shima, and it was where I chose to be, because so little was happening in the United States, and I really felt there I was making a difference.
Yeah. Oh, you've made a huge difference in a lot of places, but I think of Africa as one of your um, most engaged and most impactful. Um, so you go over to sub-Saharan Africa in the late '90s, see what is really a pretty hopeless situation, and then suddenly, after PEPFAR, uh, everything changed. And a real tip of the hat to George W. Bush and Colin Powell for having the vision and the courage to pull that together. So we watched it flourish, and we watched people live. And you, as you mentioned, helped teach a lot of women how to make jewelry. I'll add to that and say that the purpose of that was so that they could earn a living and they could create their own businesses, right?
Right. Well, and it was an empowerment sort of thing. I mean, it was to allow them to understand that they had agency. They could do this. They learned how to dress differently. They had more energy because they were taking medication. They were able to take this back to their communities, and really in Africa, maybe in a lot of places, if you give something to a woman, the woman shares it with the community. Maybe not so much the men in Africa, but the women do. And they change their communities. And these communities did change. and watching it happen, and teaching them, and making each one of them an entrepreneur in a way, but without saying that and without trying to do that. It was what they felt like they could do, and that was exciting.
So, fast forward to today, in particular, late January 2025. All of a sudden, a major agency that was really the infrastructure within a lot of countries in sub-Saharan Africa and other regions just suddenly gets annihilated by a policy decision in the current administration to eliminate USAID. And that is an agency that actually was in the Reagan building right across the street, more or less from the Willard Hotel in Pennsylvania Avenue. And you could see them chiseling the letters USAID off the wall as they dismantled this entire agency. Um, what did you think when you saw that?
Well, I think I called you. I mean, I I felt, oh, I felt like I felt like they don't care, and they don't care about people, and they don't care what's going to happen to people, and they don't care about the fact that that's going to affect us here as well. And stopping the research, stopping the helping, stopping the way programs work, and getting people medication. I mean, it's gone, it's done. And that means people are going to die. My friends, my family, these women and men and children are going to die because we were preventing at that time, well, always still until just now, women who were pregnant, we were able to prevent the children from having HIV when they were born. I mean, amazing things, and it's gone.
And USAID, we're talking now through the lens of HIV, and what people may not understand is that even if money is there from PEPFAR, which so far it is, the implementation
Is right, not
of getting turning those dollars into action, providing transportation, providing infrastructure. A lot of that was done by these workers, incredibly dedicated people who could have had other jobs in the United States and made more money, but chose to be there. Suddenly, get the rug pulled out, and the infrastructure starts to fall apart, and now people are not getting their medicines. But USAID also provided nutrition, especially for kids and babies. And now there are areas around the world that are children are starving. And it is, I don't have a great word for it either. I felt eviscerated. I felt totally demoralized.
I had what you might call a breakdown, but I've had these over my lifetime, when it feels that way, and when you feel like you have no control, and there's nothing that you can do because you want to do something. But it's preventing Ebola, it's cholera, it's all of the people helping malaria. I mean, we're going to have such, oh, I can't even imagine. I mean, I, I can't imagine, and that's what kills me.
Yeah, and it does leave us speechless to a large degree because it was so unpredictable. I didn't see that coming. I knew that there might be cuts, but I did not expect right out of the block USAID would just be eviscerated and left, leaving people on their own. So there are people now in Zambia who are in especially rural areas not getting medicines because their clinics have closed. There are children who are not getting food. There are
Water.
yeah, there are because of the USAID providing nutrition, and moms, as you indicated, not necessarily getting their ARVs while they're pregnant. And the general public mostly doesn't know. I mean, that USAID is an acronym to them. So a lot of your thesis in your upcoming book or your currently released book is about silence and the role that silence plays indirectly, if not directly, perpetuating bad things, perpetuating outcomes. And I was wondering if you got that thought from Larry Kramer, because back in the days with AIDS equals silence equals death from ACT UP. Um, Tell me about your view of silence.
Well, it's complicity, and it means that okay, it's not affecting me. But that isn't how I believe in my heart. I don't believe that it doesn't affect me. And I find myself um, unable to not say something. And to look, Mike, part of what the book started, can I show you the picture? Okay.
Sure. Yeah. And silence is in the title. Uneasy silence.
Um, what started the book was when I was really isolated in COVID, and I had moved to Los Angeles because my children had children, and I was going to be a grandmother for the first time. That's good news. I mean, being alive for that. Um, I I do want to tell you a personal story, though. Can I tell you a
Please,
personal story?
please.
Um, Apparently, they want to get rid of Narcan. Now that's not something that people understand what that is, but first responders have it. Narcan is a drug that helps overreact the opioid,
Mhm.
and now they want that to go away.
It
Now
reverses an overdose.
it reduces. Yeah, that's right.
Versus an overdose.
That's why you're a doctor and I'm not. Okay, good. And but recently I had an operation on my eye, a cataract operation. They overdosed me and I died. And I know I don't remember the ride in the ambulance to the um, um, emergency room. I don't remember that. And I know my shirt was cut open, and I know they were pounding. My throat was very very sore, so something must have been down my throat. And I realized they had given me Narcan, and if they hadn't started with that, I might not be here. And they double dosed. I mean, this is a anesthesiologist. I'm not talking about taking opioids, but you know what I'm saying.
Yep.
This is just what people don't understand, that it's easy for them to snap a finger and say, oh well, let's get rid of that because that's just not, we don't need that anymore. And what do you mean we don't need that anymore? But that's I live with that, the ability to know that okay, I wouldn't be here for this book. So part of it was that, and part of it was COVID, and looking at how many people were falling through the cracks, and thinking about this country as a wealthy country, and that we couldn't feed our children. We're not feeding our children, and we have in California, a third of the population is in poverty. That doesn't make any sense to me. We're supposed to be the fourth largest economy in the world. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So it started me thinking that there's got to be another way to talk about this. And is it the fact that we just don't care? And I have, since coming out of COVID, joined an organization that I have always known about, which is Project Angel Food. And I have love what they do, because they started in the 80s meals for people with HIV, because they couldn't get food, and they couldn't go shopping, and they didn't feel well. And it's progressed into this incredible agency, still helping people with HIV, but it's with medically tailored meals. And so they also work with people that have heart disease or cancer or diabetes or renal problems or whatever it is, and get them so that they no longer have to go to the hospital, no longer have to they can live. And this is amazing. So I became a donor, I became a volunteer, and now I'm on the board. And so for me, it's like, what can I do to make change? What can I do? And I'm just one person.
Yeah. But breaking the silence, getting involved with agencies like Project Angel Food, and using your voice yet again to break through the silence. And you were working on this book, I know, because we talked over a year ago for a while, but that was before the current administration started destroying USAID and making overtures towards decimating the research budget of NIAID, which you and I both benefited from, but especially um, people during the COVID epidemic. People take a lot of shots at Tony Fauci, but he got the vaccine through in 11 months. And how is that not recognized as remarkable? I mean, just beyond.
Remarkable. And you and I have also talked about the fact that the research that had been done on HIV and AIDS, even though we don't have a cure, we have many regimens that people can take if they have access to it, so that they can live. Um, well, that's another story if they don't have access. But but point being that because of that research, we got a COVID vaccine. We cured Hep C.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And that kind of thing has now been shut down.
And it's under siege. The
Okay,
I
you're
think
saying under siege. I'm saying cut down.
well, okay, but what it means is that what the public and what we need to speak out about and break silence on, in my opinion,
Yes,
is to explain exactly what NIH does. So pharmaceutical companies do develop products that they ultimately bring to market, but before the product is even generated, basic science research is used to determine, in the case of HIV, how the virus replicates and where the weaknesses are in the life cycle of the virus so that a drug can interrupt that and stop the replication. And
right.
as you just said, all that was basic science done not exclusively, but in large part due to funding from NIAID, the NIH, sometimes with the scientists being on campus in Bethesda, and a lot of it being distributed throughout the United States and the world for that matter, but mostly the US, for laboratories in the US and elsewhere to understand how the virus replicates. And then those keys, that understanding is then uh, helpful to the drug companies and others to generate products that they can test, and a lot of times in concert with the NIH in the case of the AIDS clinical trials group, and then get it to the market rapidly. And a friend of yours who unfortunately died years ago, Martin Delaney, was a real leader in getting fast track approval for medications, and that ultimately went on to really get the hepatitis C drugs going again. The notion of replicons, ability to study how HCV replicates, and then design drugs, and then drug companies take over from there. All of that is done because of the NIH, and all of that is done from our government, our public's contribution to research, and we do need to speak out on that, or out of we're going to lose a new generation.
Well, my understanding is that all of the people that have been fired and let go or whatever they call it, the doctors will have a place. Hopefully, they can get a job, but the researchers are just in the process of growing their I don't know how it works, Mike, but PhDs, they're getting their PhDs, they're getting their different degrees, but they're doing it by doing this research, and they're left with nothing, and they have families and they're young, and I mean it to me that's a horrible thing that's been done, which says, hello,
Yeah,
this is ridiculous, and I mean, we don't have a choice at this point, but helping is all we can do, and it just means that most of these people don't care. Or don't we care? We care, but I maybe we don't care enough.
yeah. I'm glad you brought up the process a little bit here, because it's easy to look back and say, oh, well, we discovered this was discovered, and this was applied. But when you're working on it day to day to day, there's a lot of failure. There's a lot of experiments that didn't work, a lot of ideas that were false starts that you have to start over again. And this requires day to day thinking, revision of approach, it's creativity, but in a scientific way, and that is now for a lot of people being interrupted. And when you interrupt any type of process like that, it stops, and then to start it up again doesn't isn't like you just show up in the lab the next day and you pick up where you left off. And so the risk to all of us, just even with each day that goes by, where funding is in doubt, where scientists have been unceremoniously let go, and these are leaders, these are people with years, decades of experience who help guide not only the research but also, as you mentioned, the younger people who want to get into science, and the PhDs and the postgrads who postdocs who come in to really pick up and hand the baton to them to carry things forward. Can you imagine how demoralizing it is for them? Because it's not easy being in science. And then suddenly you have this extra barrier that feels insurmountable that's thrown in their way.
Well, because I would think all of them, and I know that you, when you were a young man and when you went into research, and you and I have had this conversation, it meant something to you. You could have done anything as a doctor. You could have done anything, and this is what you chose to do because you wanted to make a difference. And I think all of those young people are doing this. It's not because they're making zillions of dollars. They're doing it because they feel they can make a difference in this world and they can help people. I mean, that to me is what it's all about. Did you recently see what Bill Gates said?
I did, but you go ahead and
No, no, you do it. You tell them.
well,
I'm just
I mean, well, everyone knows who Bill Gates is, Microsoft, and then he started the Gates Foundation. But in an interview, this is now towards the end of April, beginning of May 2025, he said um, that the richest man in the world is killing the poorest children in the world.
right.
And I just thought that was a profound statement, just like
Oh,
you.
I
Yeah.
mean, it just breaks your heart, and he's right. And I thank him for saying that. I'm grateful for him to have said that because coming from him, it means a lot. He said he a lot of his foundation work was done through USAID, and we all understand that. So what's going to happen to all of his work? I don't know.
So I think what he's going to do, what I heard recently, is he's going to take his um, wealth. I forget the exact number, but he's going to try to spend it down to zero in
Yeah,
the next 15 to 20 years and commit it all to improving children's health, improving vaccine development, making sure that access to care is there. He's not a government entity, but he does have a lot of money. And the comparing and contrast of what he's doing with almost unimaginable wealth to what I'll just name it Elon Musk has chosen to do with his wealth, basically go to Mars and whatever else. There's nothing wrong with that aspiration, but when you can do something on the ground every day here,
right.
that is important. And I admire Gates not only for what he's doing with his life and with his fortune, but he is speaking out, and that comes back to the issue of silence.
Silence, exactly.
And you're speaking out again in a nice way, and I really look forward to the book. Uh, we're running out of time, but I would like you to tell me a little bit more about the book, and how it translates into today's world in your view.
Interestingly, um, we were finishing the book and it was around election time, and I, you know, I think I at times in the book look at look at the positive and the negative of our political system and the divisiveness that we're living in. So I was saying all of this in the book, even though I don't have specifics about what happened after, but I said a lot of this, and okay, so come get me, whatever. But I'm I'm intent on talking and telling the truth. And I think what I hope to do is to let people, young, old, doesn't matter. You have something you believe in, and you believe it's right and you've researched it and you understand it, speak out. Speak out, because we have to speak out now. I don't think that we can call on other people to speak out. We have to do it.
Yeah.
Stand up.
Yeah, and we can do it for sure as individuals, and we can find like-minded people to speak with one voice together. But if we stay at it, we can make a difference, and
Exactly.
that's what your whole life has been about. And I know you're very proud of all that you've done, but I just wanted to say thank you for all that you've done and for what you continue to do. And I can't recommend your book highly enough of this new one. And it's available for purchase now, or you can get
Anywhere where you get books and on Amazon or whatever. But
all
I
your
need to say something about that too, Mike. I mean,
sure.
I'm grateful. I'll show you the picture again. And and I want to thank you for everything that you've done over your lifetime. And just amazing what you've done. I know that you don't talk about it very much, but you're a doctor that cares. You are a doctor that has changed the way patients work with doctors and engage with doctors. You did this in the early days of the HIV and AIDS, and you have always said listening to your patients and listening to people, even though you couldn't give them a cure, you helped them through. And I know you're going to say, "Oh no, no, no," but
Well, but thank you for saying that. But I will expand it if that's okay to say that there are hundreds, thousands of doctors in HIV medicine in particular are who did the same thing, and
yes, I
you know a lot of them. It's not unique to me, and I think what we found is that it's very rewarding um, watching the science turn into um, impact at the level of the patient is about as good as it gets in medicine for sure, and actually I would guess in any endeavor in life. So it's been very gratifying. And for me, having worked with people, a lot of them since the late 80s, mid 80s, and they're still coming in today. They may be walking with a cane, or they may have just had a recent hospitalization for this, that, or the other, or they may have had a recent cataract surgery that almost got overdosed on. There are people who we all know who have survived, and I celebrate that with them. We mourn the loss of the people who we lost along the way. But they are the shoulders upon whom we've built this momentum of science and application of science to practice of medicine, and we cherish their memory, and we thank them as well for their contributions. And I guess we all can hope right now that the roadblocks that are being thrown in our ways will hopefully be overcome quickly and soon, um, and we can get on with the work that we all want to do to help the people around us every day. And I think your speaking out is and others like you are the ones who've made a big difference and spurred a lot of us on over the years.
thank you, Mike. That's so sweet. Thank you.
Well, thanks for being with us today. The time went by very quickly. Um, I think people appreciate what you do, but also probably want to know more about your story. Your first book, I think, is incredible in terms of telling your story. But I look forward to seeing the details of your current book and fighting silence with you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Going Antiviral. Catch up on earlier episodes wherever you listen to podcasts, and check out the video versions of this episode and others on the IAS-USA YouTube channel. You can find these links in the show notes, or simply go to YouTube and search for IAS-USA, and there they are. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review Going Antiviral on Apple Podcasts. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to serve as medical advice. Opinions expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the IAS-USA or its affiliates. If you have a question you'd like answered on the show, you can send it to podcast@iasusa.org to be answered in a future episode.